Hey guys, it's Matt. The first in our series of Not Nilk Full Philosophers is looking more closely at Friedrich Nietzsche. Freddy Krueger, I don't know his name really. And you know, guys, that I think all this philosophy is absolutely a waste of time. It's part of the Not Nilk trick, but it's the reality trick and the Not Nilk trick designed and customized for the highly intelligent and the intellectual. Oh, real truths are over here. This reality trick is customized for each type of viewer or those that'll take it in. In this case, the intellectuals that feel they've actually accomplished something if they pour through all the works of Nietzsche and Schopenhauer. Oh, the real answers are there. And then they feel so accomplished that they actually did something with their lives when it was wasted on the philosophers. Wait a second, Matt. Surely if you're going to dive in and criticize the works of Freddy Krueger Nietzsche, you've read the complete and unabridged works and analyzed it for years. You have no business in breaking this down, sir, unless you've dived and dived into it for 10 or more. No, you know what full works I've read of Nietzsche's? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Well, I've been exposed to it on and off since my AP English classes in high school. I was a cool dude. They took me, they thought I was smart. They put me in an advanced placement. They put me in with a bunch of nerds. I didn't have no friends in the class. Who put me in this class? What happened to my friends that I play baseball with and everything? Who are these nerds? I've been exposed to it. Read little bits here and there. I'll read a section from the Wikipedia. If you think this is a worthwhile endeavor and pursuit, this intellectual nonsense, there's something wrong with you. We'll start with this brief segment from Wikipedia. Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche, is that right? I don't know. 1844, died 1900. Was born in the province of Saxony, Prussia. I was born in King of Prussia. Kingswood Apartments, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. He's Prussia, which was the old, I guess, Germany annexed that. So we got that in common. We're already brothers from another mother. It says here, he started his career as a classical philologist. I had to look, what the hell's a philology? Yeah, I had to look that up. It's studying the classics, which isn't a complete waste of time, in my opinion. Plato, Socrates, Hippocrates, Aristotle, that sort of thing. Then he became your more modern philosopher. Let me read just this one passage and you'll see my basic problems with this sort of thing. Nietzsche's work spans philosophical polemics, poetry, cultural criticism, and fiction, while displaying a fondness for aphorism and irony. Prominent elements of his philosophy include his radical critique of truth in favor of perspectivism, a genealogical critique of religion and Christian morality, and a related theory of master-slave morality, the atheism affirmation of life in response to both death of God and the profound crisis of nihilism, the notion of Apollonian and Dionysian forces, and a characterization of the human subject as the expression of competing wills, collectively understood as the will to power. He stole that from Schopenhauer. He also developed influential concepts such as the Übermensch. Okay. If you dive into that, and there's intellectual types that spend years trying to decipher that sort of nonsense, that's simply another characteristic or flavor of the reality trick that's customized for a certain level of intellectual that likes to pat themselves on the back and look at themselves in the mirror. Oh, there's a few people out there. Matt, you just too... see, they spent years on it, so they're upset, and they want to be upset at me now. You just too stupid to understand it. You think I'm too stupid to understand it? No, I was smart enough never to dive into it in the first place. One of Nietzsche's most famous books is called Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which for obvious reasons I've renamed Thus Spoke Zara. It says here, he wrote in Ecce, E-C-C-E, I don't know how to pronounce that, it's German. In Ecce Homo, that's the name of his last book. Yeah, it's Ecce Homo. The central idea of Zarathustra, which I've renamed Zara, occurred to him by a pyramidal block of stone on the shores of Lake Silvaplana. And it's a pyramid block of stone with a plaque. If you walk by, we've looked at this before, remember? I think that I came across this. We're going to, of course, look at Nietzsche's ridiculous theory of eternal return. That's the reason I keep coming back to his absurd theory. We just keep doing this over and over and over again. Could you imagine? The only thing good about if we come back an unlimited number of times, infinitely and eternally, as Nietzsche postulates, there's only two good things. The first time you get laid and the A-Team series with Mr. T. Other than that, the rest isn't very good. But at least we got that to look forward to if we got 40 billion more times doing this, as Nietzsche suggests. He really believes this. What basis would you believe that, sir? We'll get to that later, one thing at a time. But I had another oh no moment. It was a pyramid rock on a lake, and with the lady of the lake come out and throw you a sword. Nietzsche, hikers and bikers can go by on this little path and they see a plaque on a stone. This is the pyramidal stone that inspired Freddy Krueger Nietzsche. I don't like the fact that Not Milk History has to point out that it was a pyramid block. I don't know if it's just me, but many of us have become skeptical when a pyramid is prominently shown in terms of reality or not milk reality, trying to make a presentation of sorts. Maybe that's just me. Matt, it's nothing. Anybody could be inspired by a pyramid. I know. I'll take the whole video down. Let's go back to that nonsense paragraph in Wikipedia that I read. His work spans philosophical polemics, cultural criticism, aphorism, irony, perspectivism, genealogical critique of religion and Christian morality, the atheistic affirmation of life, Apollonian and Dionysian forces. I mean, come on, man. What an absolute waste of time joke. I'm sorry if you spent a lot of time on this stuff. It's done for one reason. So the person that's trying to understand it, eventually, if they're intelligent enough, can understand it, and then they feel superior to the little lower humans that they interact with, the guy that cuts his deli meats, the half pound of bologna, that they feel this doesn't get you anywhere. At the end of the day, we're here in life for a very short period of time. We're here to experience the low, not to transcend into some being of light, to enjoy the aspects of this experience that you can only get here, that you can't get where we came from. Everybody here's inner knowing says we were alive in some way or existed in spiritual form before this existence, so we will exist after. Therefore, use what's in front of you to the best of your ability. We're here in this life for a very short period of time to learn something about ourselves that we can't learn where we came from, to overcome certain things here on this game board that we can't overcome there because the game board's completely different. This is hardcore pipe hitting. It's about yourself. What can you do to better yourself? What can you do to take in the experience, to embrace, in a way, the low? Reading all this philosophical nonsense, what does it get you when you've spent 20 years and then you understand it? You know what? Tell him what he's won, Johnny on his deathbed. Squat. You've won absolute squat. It's done nothing for you. And the cycle of these not-milk philosophers is they all try to better themselves via the next generation of one that can demonstrate that they're more intelligent than the one that came before. So his big influence was Schopenhauer. He spent years and years reading and trying to understand what Schopenhauer meant by his waste of time, pessimistic works. And Schopenhauer was influenced by the greater fool that came before him, Immanuel Kant. And Kant had, I haven't read that much of Kant, but there's some pretty good stuff. Kant has some ways to think big, and I'm not going to throw him under the bus like I will Schopenhauer and Nietzsche. But each intellectual that comes in the subsequent generation then has to prove they're smarter than the dope that came before. So here's Schopenhauer. There's a fundamental distinction between the world as it appears to be, the phenomena, and the world as it truly is, the noumena. But that's actually correct. Wait a second. There's a fundamental difference between the world as it appears, phenomena, as the world as it truly is. The noumena, we need to adopt. I take it back. maybe you're onto something here. You should have lived through the 7-Eleven job application as we did. But it's guys, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, to us, there's a main difference. Hey, my best friend Tony, there's a big difference between the world as it appears and the world as it truly is. I like that. But of course, 95% of his work is just nonsense too. I wanted to point that out first because I like that part. Schopenhauer writes, "Thus, behind the appearance of my bodily movements lies the reality of my will or desire. This will does not exist, like my body, in time and space. It is not a physical entity at all, but underlies the whole of animate and inanimate nature throughout the cosmos." Well, how are you an atheist, then, after a statement like that, Schopenhauer? Didn't he just describe soul or spirit? Beyond the body is something called will or desire, he's saying. Will or desire, what's beyond the body, he says, does not exist like my body in time and space. It's not a physical entity. Well, didn't you just describe soul and spirit? I mean, maybe he never put it together that there could be like a higher self or we're just a smaller aspect of something else. I might call it higher self, or I don't like oversoul. I don't like any of these words. I just like saying we might be a smaller aspect of a greater whole, just playing a part here. I like putting it that way. He talks about this will. Well, what's the difference? I don't think they just labeled him atheist. I think he's admitted atheist. It doesn't make any sense to me. Oh, these guys. He's rolling around. I'm sure as I'm doing this critique. Well, if you continue reading Schopenhauer, this will is not soul spirit. It's just seen as the source of all suffering. And there's no more pessimistic philosopher that exists anywhere than this Schopenhauer character. He says, "The never satisfied wishes, the frustrated efforts, the hopes unmercifully crushed by fate, the unfortunate errors of the whole life, with increasing suffering and death at the end, are always a tragedy." No, you moron. These are the trials of this life, exact. But that's the point of the life. I mean, come on. Oh gosh, they just see life as by itself in isolation. If you see it as part of a gigantic whole, gather up what you can. I didn't read the poetry, but I got it from Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society. "Gather ye rosebuds while ye may." You know, you do even the suffering here is part of the deal. It's just gather it up here. Maybe you don't suffer from the place in which you came. You're supposed to be big thinkers, you people, but you're like examining this life, you philosophers, in isolation. Well, look at the different perspective when you see this as a tiny little part of a massive whole. And no, we don't know what's on the other side, the other 99 point whatever percent. But do what you can do for that whole in terms of what's right in front of you and what's right before you. Before moving on, it's worth noting that in addition to Schopenhauer, the other major influence on Nietzsche was Wilhelm Richard Wagner. You know, is it Philly? Richard Wagner? Richard Wagner, now a composer and also philosopher. Most people know Wagner in the same way I do. That scene from Tom Cruise's Valkyrie, where the composer, Hitler approaches Tom Cruise and says, "One does not understand National Socialism unless one understands Wagner." That's the extent of my understanding of Richard Wagner. It's just worth noting that Nietzsche had one other major influence in his life other than Schopenhauer. Let's look at a few passages from Nietzsche about the need to study the metaphysical or to ponder the metaphysical via philosophy, or is it a waste of time? Meta, the word itself, the original root means the after or beyond, what is out there, or beyond the intrinsic value of what is right in front of you. Facebook, of course, has just adopted the parent or corporate name Meta, which takes on a different definition, something about being aware of oneself. And Zuckerberg, of course, wants his AI somehow to be self-aware. It has something to do with that. The AI being eventually aware of oneself. That is an alternative definition, or maybe it's just a normal definition for meta, but not the root of the prefix meta, whatever. Stop it now, this nonsense. Here's what Nietzsche said. "It is true regarding metaphysics, There could be a metaphysical world. The absolute possibility of it is hardly to be disputed. So it could be there, something beyond what we can comprehend. We behold all things through the human head, and cannot, which one? And cannot cut off this head, while the question nonetheless remains, what of the world would still be there if one had cut it off? What the? Says, it is certain that knowledge of it, the metaphysics, would be the most useless of all knowledge. More useless even than knowledge of the chemical composition of water must be to a drowning sailor. I don't know. Did anybody ever yell to the drowning sailor, it's H2O, does that help you down there? Does it help you tread water if you know it's 2 hydrogen atoms? Maybe that can help somebody. Frederick? Okay, look, it seems at first when I read this, like, well, of course we want to understand the metaphysical. That's the fundamental goal, isn't it, of most of philosophy. But I kind of understand what he's saying, and we can interpret that or pull that into the way about yourself, the only philosophy that really matters in this life, where he says, okay, the knowledge of it would be the most useless of all knowledge. And that's true to a degree, because we've talked about if we knew who we really were, or completely understood the beyond, or completely understood what higher self was, and we wouldn't take this world seriously. We wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. This world needs to be taken seriously. And all the things it piles on, all its ridiculous theories like the Big Bang Theory and we came from Marmot and Monkey Man, all that needs to be considered, that this could be the end of existence upon your death, or that life doesn't work. It has to be taken seriously. So I kind of agree with what he's saying in terms about the way about yourself philosophy, knowledge of the beyond. It's what we do. We ponder that all the time, but a full knowledge and 100% understanding of it would take the meaning of this life away, and what the reasons we're here to do the work. So I'll give you, okay, Nietzsche, I'm not sure we're on the same page, but I like where I like where you're coming from. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, this one I'm going to have more problems with. Let's examine this famous quote by Freddy, Krueger, Nietzsche. There is no pre-established harmony between the furtherance of truth and the well-being of mankind. There is no pre-established harmony between the furtherance of truth and the well-being of mankind. Put another way, as humans collectively further their understanding, society goes to shit. Well, he's saying it. As truth comes into clarity, the well-being of mankind can go down, and that's what this is saying. So the key here, Freddy, is what do you mean by truth? The truth as it's presented and agreed upon by the collective. That collective agreed upon truth is managed by what we call not milk and an evil influence. It's part of the reality trick. I didn't, again, read that much Nietzsche, but did he, I doubt he saw not milk. Did he see the evil here, the influence over people? So in general, I agree with what he's saying, because the truth that appears on the X and Y graph is the truth that's put forward by the not milk, by the trick of this reality. And not only is it not in harmony with, as he says here, quote, the well-being of mankind, those that manage the trick, it's meant to destroy the well-being of mankind. It's a false truth put out, meant to destroy. Did you see that, Freddy Krueger, Nietzsche? Do you see not milk, sir? So I'll put out my own little aphorism, whatever the hell that is. One cannot even engage in truth without seeing not milk, because there is something here trying to block truth. Do you see that there's someone else on the other side of the playing field, Nietzsche? I doubt it. He probably wouldn't see not milk. He would probably say, God is dead. There's no such thing as Satan. There is no adversary. Man's trying to replace God. Thus spoke Zara. Endless pessimism and nihilism. But the more I consider it, I think we should give him a break, because the adversary, this not milk thing, probably wasn't nearly as apparent when he lived. Whatever, he was born 150 years ago or so. Okay, look, first off, I'm not trying to say I'm a greater thinker than Nietzsche. He's double the IQ, triple the IQ of mine, of course. Let's give the guy a break. He didn't have the tools we have. The reality is giving itself away. You don't have to be intelligent to see through this reality in 2024. If I was debating Freddy, Krueger, Nietzsche in a Billy Madison debate, all I'd be able to say after every single question is, stupid is as stupid does, sir. That's all I'd be able to say and parrot back. And like in the Billy Madison debate, the moderator would say, I award you no points. What you said is the most incoherent, moronic thing I've ever heard, and this audience is worse off for having heard it, quantum of conscience. I award you no points versus Friedrich Nietzsche, and God have mercy on your soul. That would be the reply every single time. I'm not saying I'm smarter than this man. He's triple in terms of the thinker. But, okay, if Not Nilk was around when he lived, in my opinion, he mostly failed to see it, and you cannot get anywhere regarding what you would call truth without seeing there's an adversary trying to block our understanding and what we're supposed to do in this life. And this is giving Frederick the benefit of every doubt, because it could get much worse for Frederick. He could be, as most prominent figures of this world are, an agent for Not Nilk. What's all the cockroach poses with the hands in the shirt, scratching away, get that cockroach out, there's multiple, there's one eye covered images if you want to interpret it a certain way. Now he might not be in on it. The Not Nilk brings people, artists, celebrity to the forefront where the Not Nilk, the adversary of real spiritual beings, can use those thinkers, those writers. H.G. Wells is a great example. He probably had no idea about Not Nilk. He probably looked in the mirror and thought he was as great as everybody says he was. He's used by the Not Nilk to bring forth concepts and images about what space is and interstellar travel, and all of these things are used by Not Nilk. Maybe Nietzsche was used. I don't think anybody comes to international, worldwide fame and recognition if they don't serve Not Nilk. I think it's that simple. And I think this thing has been here a long time. So in many ways, there's no doubt Nietzsche served Not Nilk, or you would have never heard of him. It would have all been buried, or he actually worked for Not Nilk. What's with all those cockroach poses? Get the hand out of your shirt and jacket all the time. We're tired of that. Let's look at this quote by Nietzsche. That which we now call the world is the result of a host of errors and fantasies which have gradually arisen in the course of the total evolution of organic nature, have become entwined with one another, and are now inherited by us as the accumulated treasure of the entire past. Frederick, I award you no points, and God have mercy on your soul. The audience is worse off for having heard that. What a bunch of nonsense. He says the total evolution of organic nature. When did Darwin live and die versus Nietzsche? And did you believe in this evolution horseshit, Nietzsche? I mean, that hurts your cause right there. The world is a result of a host of errors and fantasies. Okay. Which has arisen in the course of the total evolution of organic nature. For him to use the word organic, he must believe in some sort of Darwin evolution, which is totally ridiculous. Have become entwined with one another, now inherited by us as the accumulated treasure of the entire past. Accumulated treasure, it's an accumulated turd. It gets worse and more. It breaks down over time. Truth is eroded by Not Nilk over time, Nietzsche. What treasure? Get your head out of your ass, boy! That what we call the world is a host of errors and fantasies? Well, yes. Where do you think those errors and fantasies came from? From not fucking Nilk. Sorry. This brings us to our favorite part. Nietzsche's eternal return, or also called eternal recurrence, where every single moment of your life has been done trillions of times before in the exact same order, and will be done trillions of times again in future lifetimes in the exact same order, right down to every precise second. In other words, if you didn't understand any of that, every bad television show you've ever seen, you will see it again trillions of times over. That's what Nietzsche believed. He writes, quote, I was that day walking through the woods beside the lake of Silva Plana. I stopped beside a mighty pyramidal block of stone, oh no, which reared itself up Not far from Surley, then this idea came to me. Let me repeat the key elements. He was walking through the woods beside a lake, stopped beside a mighty pyramidal block of stone, and it reared itself up not far from Surley and gave him the idea of eternal return or eternal recurrence. So then he could implant that into the minds of spiritual beings, so potentially they could take that unsuredness, if that's a word, into the moment of death and then curse themselves as they believe that potentially could be on the table through the moment of death, because what they take through the moment of death is what they'll manifest on themselves. Hey, thanks, Nietzsche! It is said Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence echoes the Buddhist idea of karmic repetition. Oh, we know how damaging that is to the real spiritual being. Let's jump into this. Oh my God. Nietzsche's most famous writing about eternal return, there's a trillions of more lifetimes waiting for you in the future, in the exact precise moments that you're living them now, he put it like this. What if a demon crept after you one day or night in your loneliest solitude and said to you, that's a nice thought, thanks, Frederick. The demon, in the form of Hillary Clinton, he writes, says, this life, as you live it now and have lived it, you will have to live it again and again, times without number, and there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and all the unspeakably small and great events in your life must return to you, and everything in the same series and sequence. Continuing in a different section, did you ever say yes to one joy? Oh, my friends, then you said yes to all woe as well. All things are chained and entwined together. All things are in love. If ever you wanted one moment twice, if ever you said, you please me, happiness, instant moment, then you wanted everything to return. No, Freddy Krueger, I don't think so. Let's examine the first part, because this is correct. Did you ever say yes to one joy? Oh, my friends, then you said yes to all woe as well. Oh, gee, Freddy, a basic duality of this realm. That's real hard to notice. Is that yours originally, Freddy? Like, we didn't know that? The yin and the yang symbol goes back thousands of years. Yeah, if you came to this reality, you take on the joy, the woe comes along for the ride. As you said here in your wisdom, they're entwined. Yeah, we all know that. This ain't nothing new, Freddy. Yet yin-yang symbol, about 40,000 years older than you are. This ain't shit. Let's look at the second part. The greater argument amongst us will be here. If you ever wanted one moment twice, if you ever said, you please me, or as Nietzsche's saying, if you ever grasped onto a certain joy and wanted that joy again, he's saying here, then you wanted everything to return. No, Freddy. How do you bridge these two things together? It's a fallacious fellatio logic. It's ridiculous. Sir, did you enjoy a few parts of your high school experience? Well, yeah, I enjoyed a few aspects of going to high school. Then you want to be in high school forever, sir. I can put you right back with radio in the 11th grade. If you wanted anything at all and you appreciated anything, then you want it not just again, like on a Tuesday. You want it forever and ever. This is what a not-nilk villain would say. One of the smartest things Tony, the other Tony, said that resonated with me the most is you essentially, after death or through the moment of death, get what you expect to get. Because we hold the power. That's why it's pretty simple. That's why not-nilk works your entire life to influence you and to trick you. See how that works? If you expect the archons to swoop in at the moment of death, an archon's going to swoop in with some sort of trick at the moment of death. You basically get what you expect. And Tony even said, even a Christian, Tony said this, I'm just the messenger, relax. Tony said, a Christian will get heaven, no doubt. But it's not, they'll realize there's many more aspects or layers, according to Tony, to reality or what they need to do or what their higher self needs from them. Maybe they will be in a Christian heaven or with Jesus, as he put it, for hundreds of years and then say, wait a second, this isn't the final. They've created that for themselves. This theme in general is, we have seen it in art and even movies. But if there's any truth to this, that as the spiritual being here, ultimately with the most power and in control, you take into the moment of death and manifest on yourself what you expect, like all those Buddhists expecting you go through the bardos, then they go through the bardos. If that resonates with me, it really does. Then would there be anything more evil? If there's like an uncle or something, a dirty uncle that you don't like, and he had read Nietzsche, he's on his deathbed, and you and the family are there in the hospital. You just, as you see him passing, and he's about to pass, you just scream, "Eternal return!" You remember Nietzsche's eternal return. Don't forget, Uncle Fred, in Nietzsche's eternal return, eternal recurrence. You just scream, put that in his ear, or whisper it, like maybe a little bit more gently, like the princess in Braveheart, where she said to Longshanks, "You see, death comes to us all." You whisper eternal return into dirty Uncle Fred's ear then he'll take that belief set into the moment, and then he'll manifest his own eternal return. So as Nietzsche writes about this, how many hundreds of millions of people over the years considered it well, you're talking about it now, Matt. I'm talking about it and pointing out as complete nonsense and why you shouldn't buy it. I'm allowed to. Am I saying to whisper this to yourself on the moment of death? No, I'm saying it's horse shit. Okay? But this is what a not-milk villain would say. It's no different than Buddhism getting billions to believe that, well, I got tens of thousands of more lifetimes to go, and I'll eventually figure it out. Well, then let's say you're in lifetime 10,000 after that realization. Well, what makes you think you're going to be closer to figuring it out? You could be doing the same thing. Well, I got 10,000 more lifetimes to go. Eventually, I'll figure it out. The Buddhist saying that right now may have said, eventually, I'll figure it out 10,000 lifetimes ago. And you're still repeating the cycle. The idea is to not, Nietzsche, if you ever had one joy here, then you wanted to eternally return. No, the first time some girl in high school, I'm not going to say what she did with her hand or whatever. I liked it. I don't want it forever. It would cause all sorts of chapping and I don't want that forever. I liked it. No, it doesn't mean I want it forever and I want to eternally return to get whacked off in a broom closet. Nietzsche sounds a little bit like not-milk villainy to me. You don't want the classification from Quantum of Conscience, thou art a villain, do you? Well, in closing, old Nietzsche's not here to defend himself, nor does he have a de facto attorney of sorts, whatever that means. And he, of course, there's many things he said that got people thinking that were much more positive. I mean, come on, the works are endless, and this is just a one half of 1%. Mostly the other things I talked about was an excuse to revisit eternal return, which I absolutely have a problem with. We do appreciate, it's okay to appreciate certain things in this life. It doesn't mean it's going to eternally return. It doesn't mean you're creating your own Jacob Marley chain that's going to bring you back. Matt, we have to hate the world as we go into the moment of death, or we're going to be recycled. No, we don't. I'm getting more nostalgic because I know the reason for the nostalgia is I know it's my last time. True nostalgia, almost to the point of tears, comes when you know this is your last time. I'm not creating a Jacob Marley chain for myself because I appreciate something like the beauty of nature. Absolutely not. Why? Because I said so. It's that simple. So we'll close with this. Of course, there's many things Nietzsche said that we would once said and are applicable today in a very positive way. And again, who am I to? I haven't read 1/100th of anything he ever put out. So let's close in his favor. He says, "The distinguishing qualities between the sexes must be developed more and more. The gulf between them must be made even wider." See, that's a statement that a not-milk villain would never say, because what are they doing now? They're trying to blend the sexes. And for some reason, this age, in their sick ways, the age of androgyny, the age of the Baphomet, of the Pokemon Go, where it removes the women's hips so they appear more like men, of watching a movie with you and your girlfriend, and the entire movie you think it's one sex and she thinks it's another because you can't differentiate what's on the screen. I mean, look, maybe the not-milk changed up its tactics, but at least for these modern times, 2024, I mean, bring back what Nietzsche said, and no doubt that Nietzsche's right about this. What makes a woman and different from a man? It should be accentuated for things to get better. The differences need to be celebrated and not tried to blend together. So I appreciate what old Freddy Krueger Nietzsche said in this regard. And if he would have been able to see what they're doing to the sexes and the blending in 2024, he would truly be appalled. But in terms of the jury weighing their decision against Freddy, there's not enough evidence for me to bring down the gavel and to put him away for life as a not milk agent. But, things like eternal return, things that are that disturbing. And when the idea came to him as he walked by a pyramid rock and the posing of the pictures with the jacket looking for the cockroacha, I'm sorry. I can't bring the gavel down and a formal sentence against Freddy. But let's just say this. Freddy was suspect. All right? If you're going to read Nietzsche, be suspect that you could be reading the works of a hardcore, pipe-hitting, not milk villain. Thanks for listening.